Good morning, Namibia, and welcome to the COVID-19 Communications Center Daily Update at 10 o'clock every morning. This morning, we are discussing a lot around the local authorities and the impact that COVID-19 in Namibia has had on the service provisions to every resident in the country, with a particular focus to the city of Windhoek. My name is Emma Theophilus, the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of ICT, and I'm joined by Mr. Nanda Shipa, who will be our sign language interpreter. Today we are also then going to allow you as citizens, because really the purpose of this center is to ensure that you're able to get the information around COVID-19, but also engage on the discussions. And that's why we have a public call-in number, which is 061-400-397, to allow you later in the program for you to call in and ask your questions directly to the panelists in any queries that you might have. Like I said, we're discussing local authorities with a particular focus to the City of Windhoek municipality, and that's why I'm joined this morning by panelists consisting of 3 gentlemen. We have the CEO of the City of Windhoek, Mr. Robert Kaimise. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. I'm also joined by Chief Abraham Kanime, who is the head of the City Police in the City of Windhoek. Thank you very much for joining us, as well as Mr. Philemon Hambuda, who is the Strategic Executive in the Economic Development and Community Services of the City of Windhoek. Thank you again for joining us. But as it is tradition, before we get into our panel discussions, I'd like to call upon the Deputy Minister of Health and Social Services, Honorable Dr. Esther Mwinyangwe, to give us a health update around the health sector of COVID-19 in Namibia. Dr. Mwinyangwe.
Good morning, everyone in the room. Good morning, Namibia. Thank you, DM, for giving me the opportunity. What do they say? No news is good news. So the situation is still the same. And for us as a Ministry of Health, that is a very good information, very good situation. We have so far tested 546. 65 were retested just for monitoring purposes. And as we all know, the 16 confirmed cases remain 16, of which 6 have recovered. So which means that we have 10 that are still active cases, and they are reported to be in very stable conditions. Now, we also know that we have decided to roll out testing, and by yesterday, we have tested 20, and only 1 test is pending. The other 19 cases, they were all negative. And we also have started to test every person who present himself or herself at any health facility in Windhoek who are showing respiratory symptoms. Those are also now being tested, and they are part of the 20 that I have reported. Information briefly on the quarantine facilities. We have, yesterday we had 16 people in Ohangwena, but now there are 17. Oshodonjupa remains 39 in quarantine. Commerce, we had as yesterday 22, but as from this morning, 2 were sent home, so we have 20 in the quarantine facility. Sambesi, we have 29. Karas, we have 12. So the total of people who are still in quarantine stands at 117. So that is shortly and briefly the update that I have for this morning. Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, DM, for that update. We are happy to learn that the situation remains the same, although we hope that it improves as we continue to fight COVID-19 in Namibia. Before I give over to my panel as we discuss the issue of the measures in place to avert and address the economic hardships that are facing local authorities in a time such as this, I'd like to make a quick announcement. That is, from the 20th of April 2020, all regional constituency councillors are no longer issuing travel permits. These permits are now being issued by 1, the NAMPO regional commanders and the authorized station commanders, 2, regional directors of health, and 3, regional directors of education. For those who want to get travel permits, please contact these authorized officials for those permits. But we also would like to caution members of the public to only access or apply for these permits in situations that are necessitated by an essential service or emergency. If not, please do not apply for these travel permits because it is inundating these officers with all these applications, but also that we do not want many people having travel permits because it defeats the purpose of the state of emergency and the lockdown extension that we are in to try to curb COVID-19 in Namibia. All right, moving over to my panelists, I think I will start with you, Mr. Kaimise. As the CEO of the city of Windhoek, arguably the largest municipality in Namibia, we have seen that you have put measures in place to assist residents of your city to cope with the precious and unfortunate situations that come with COVID-19. But we also understand it was a balancing act that your municipality had to take to also take into account the financial impact, the economic impact that will have on your local authority. Can you tell us just as a roundup really, what the general impact of COVID-19 has been thus far and what you then expect post-COVID-19?
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to put the city as well as the municipality of Windhoek into context. In Namibia, we operate in a 3-tier level of government, central, region, as well as the local authority government. Today, we are zooming into the local authority fraternity, of which the municipality of Windhoek is the biggest municipality. What are we talking about when we talk about the city of Windhoek? It's a municipality that is serving residents well above 400,000 residents, of which 1/3, that number is growing, around 150,000 residents are residing in an informal settlement. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest informal settlement population in Namibia. With dwellings in an informal settlement, we used to make a reference of 40,000, now very close to 50,000 dwellings in the informal settlements. The city itself, we have employees, permanent 2,500. Mm-hmm. If we add our temporary and interns, we are catering for over 3,000 staff complement. We are entrusted with an operational budget of 4.3 billion Namibian dollars.
4.3 billion?
Billions, mm-hmm. Yes. Our capital budget, as usual, especially lately, is driven by available of cash to fund that specific capital budget. And we are also grateful for the grants through NPC and our line ministry to sustain our capital budget going forward. but it usually ranges easily 300 million, and it can go as far as 700 million, depending on how that capital budget will be funded. So in terms of impact, Honorable Minister, is huge. It's huge. It's huge. I will start off with what Council did immediately after the declaration of the state of emergency and even the lockdown. What Council did is, Council had a meeting. Through my office, we've put together an emergency response team, headed by Chief Kanime as the incident commander, and also Mr. Ambunda as a deputy commander for that committee. Under them, they have various committees that actually caters for each of the areas and sectors that needed mitigation as far as the impact of COVID-19 is concerned. So I'll just briefly, on a high level, touch on some of the issues, how the city is impacted. Definitely operationally we have been impacted. We issued guidelines for the staff members, which I've just referred to. The majority of our employees are providing essential services due to the services that we provide, but there's a significant number also needed equipment to operate from home. PPE, all the frontline staff are fully equipped to protect themselves before we protect whoever we are engaging. Service delivery surely have been impacted. As you know, cash halls has been closed up to now. But considering the impact on the cash flow of Council, we are also revisiting to reopen at least cash halls for 3 days. Please take note, the biggest cause of overcrowding at our ordinary cash halls is usually water tokens, when we talk about cash halls on the northwestern side. So it is well planned. We don't expect our cash halls to be overcrowded as usual, because there is free water out there. This is how we have also been impacted operationally. So we are planning to open cash halls at least for 3 days, and I will touch on the cash flow impact so that the public can also understand what we are trying to mitigate, at the same time complying with the set regulations. The way we interact with public have changed completely. Currently, under the lockdown, is mainly electronic payments and the contact centers that are working. So you can call for inquiries if you need a balance or whatever the issue might be. Through the contact center, they will dispatch through the control centers, whether it's water, electricity, parks, whatever the service might be, and then they will dispatch the team, which is usually emergency essential services providers. So that's how our business have changed, and we will continue evolving. Municipal services, although it's a monopoly, we need to offer the best service to our residents. So I think surely post-COVID, our business of the day will change. We can see the signals very clear. Free water during lockdown period surely has gone out there. The informal settlement, as I've referred to, 2 water sources, water tanks, and I think we'll elaborate on the details, as well as water standpipes. Have been rolled out there. We will come to the numbers to ensure that if you are far away from a stand water pipes, which is usually where they used to use water tokens, they can access free water from the tanks, which have been rolled out strategically, covering almost the whole of the informal settlement. Also, previously disconnected services, Honorable Minister, this is now even electricity. We even used to block prepaid electricity to ensure that residents pay for rates and taxes and other services. All those services that were blocked previously have been reopened and reconnected during this specific period. Surely electricity is not for free, as well as also conventional water for some of us who are not staying that side. Surely whatever you accumulate, you are expected to honor those obligations. So those are also some of the difference which we have also experienced.
Perhaps
If-
just also there, would the city be considering payment holidays in that regard?
Good question, Honorable Minister. We have received quite a number of requests. But we have to make a distinction between the normal formal market of the economy and the informal market of the economy. The formal market that usually pay for taxes, our expectation is for those clients to benefit from the economic stimulus as offered by government. The informal traders or the informal market, please take note, these markets have a huge population of our people and residents. That specific one in Windhoek, we are talking about 18 markets in total. Even when you talk about the street vendors, typical street vendors and hawkers, more than 2,000 at various corners in Windhoek. Now, when we come to the market itself, the magnitude is even huge. So the only area where we actually consider payment holidays for now, we are still looking at a council submission, is to probably waive the fees for those informal market. The informal markets that usually pays a fee between $50, $100 per month to $300, depending on the space that they occupy at our various informal markets.
And in
open
households?
markets. Households, currently we are still looking at it. Households, take note, 1/3 of the population already is subsidized. And we also expect back-to-back subsidy, either through NAMWater and the government. Those discussions are taking place. So the other households, probably the more middle income and affluent, surely we are expected to honor our obligations during this period. But merits are not excluded. That's why I just indicated we are receiving now applications, but I think on a high level where we are, when you participate in a formal market, kindly exploit and engage the Ministry of Finance so that they can benefit from the economic stimulus as offered by government. Just to touch, maybe finally, before I hand over to the colleagues, under normal conditions, Honorable Minister, we expected to collect 266 million by the 18th of April. Under normal conditions. However, we collected 149 million. We are actually 45% below. And we expect that trend to continue towards surely end of this month and up to the 2 weeks, even in May. The impact is huge. From a local authority perspective, there are even other local authorities. They don't distribute electricity. We distribute electricity. Electricity is done by the distributors. They survive mainly on water provision. And that water is for free. It's a dilemma, it's a serious situation. I would like to impress that we really need assistance sooner than later, and we are all clustered in different categories. Surely we are not impacted equally. But the City of Windhoek position, that's how we are impacted. And that is also the reason why we're considering at least to open for 3 days our cash halls. I understand other local authorities' cash halls are opened, implementing social distancing and other precautionary measures. We are considering opening up because we have come to realize some of our residents, they refuse by all means to deposit their money through a bank, especially cash payments, and they don't trust any electronic payments. It's a significant number. We have no other choice but to also create an opportunity so that we can also get that cash, which is highly needed to sustain our operations going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kayimise. I now move over to Chief Kanime. The City of Windhoek, of course, has a city police that it depends on to assist in maintaining law and order. What has been the city police experience during this COVID-19 time, of course, from the beginning when the state of emergency was announced, and now looking at the extension of the lockdown? How has that impacted your operations? What are your challenges, but what are the opportunities for improvement you see as a city police?
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. The coronavirus is an invisible enemy who attacked us. And moreover, this situation, if you compare it to a normal crime or road safety disorder, is different. Mainly because the virus itself, the transmission thereof is invisible. And in order for you to curb, suppress, and total prevent it, you need to change from a traditional policing approach to a community-related policing where you seek the consent of the public. And in order to do that, one need to educate and create awareness among the community so that you can have the voluntarism. The main reason is that for you to succeed, number one, you need to let the community understand the virus itself. What is that we are talking about? Then you set measures in place, and you also need the community to understand the measures and the benefit thereof. Knowing our community, that to them, the order can only be complied with, or measures can only be complied with when there is police officers. Once they are gone, then they will go back to square one. And with such a situation again, knowing how our city is densely populated, especially at informal settlement, we really have a big hurdle to overcome. Based on that approach or that situation, when we say stay at home, when we said only if you have to go to a pharmacy or to the hospital or to the store that you need to move, it have created a commotion between the law enforcement on one side and the community, especially at the informal settlement at the beginning, forcing us to start disrupt their movement so that we can engage them. And when the situation went further, it also became a problem. We find ourselves between two hard rocks. One is COVID coming. The other one is poverty and hunger, because we confine the community in their houses and they have nothing to eat. And nothing is hard or difficult to a police officer to police a hungry community. Taxi drivers are trying to see how they can get money. And as we know, the municipal buses are no more in operation, and most of our people need to move from one point to another. But the taxi drivers at the beginning, they were not aware of the conditions, how or measures that they need to put in place. Not only taxi drivers, but most of the drivers. And it put us in a more situation of confrontation.
Well, what are these measures?
The measures, if you have a sedan that in a normal condition you carry 5 passengers, or 4 passengers plus a driver. In terms of the measures, in terms of the regulations, you should only have 4 people. And as we already, or as it was already alluded to, that COVID is invisible. The other measure is that you take measures to disinfect your vehicle. But most of our people, and especially at the beginning, disinfectants were not available. Go to the bakkie, we still have the bakkies or people carried passengers on load boxes. And they can be as many as possible. But in this situation, we said 4 people at the back. If it's or in the front cabin, you should have only 2. If it's a double cab, you should only have 4. Those are some of the measures. And we are also telling the people that you only move the time you are going to perform an essential or critical services. But you still find, especially taxis, just going from one street looking for passengers. The best way could be, why don't you base your movement on a clientele approach? You have your number, they call you, you pick them, then you go back. Because the more you move from various points to the other, the more you become vulnerable to contract the disease and further spread it. So the police are hard at work in consultation or in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and Social Services, the Department of Primary Health Care, to see how we can get down to the ground to give a clear message by developing or finalize the messages. So far we have identified 17 radios by yesterday's where we are going to convey those messages on a daily basis. We have identified more than 10 vehicles with loudspeakers that will go around and convey those messages. And we are going to produce leaflets. The city has a printing machine. It's big enough. But, as it was said by the Chief Executive Officer, funding is a problem. If money can be availed to the Ministry of Health to use the facility of the city, buying materials, and see the material, the ink and others, we're really able to do this rather than just trying to get assistance from outside while we have some facility within the system.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanime, for that. We'll continue the discussion a bit more. I'd like now to go over to Mr. Hambuda. as the executive really around community services, the impact, of course, is huge on especially the informal settlements. The CEO alluded to a little bit about the informal markets that continue to be a concern about the reopening schedule and citizens getting a chance to get the income they used to get before. So would like to know what is the status of the informal markets now? When can traders expect to trade? But also information generally about the community services the city of Windhoek used to give to the community and where they stand currently.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Minister, Deputy Minister of Health, Social Services. Yes, the Department of Economic Development and Community Services have five divisions. One of the divisions are the economic development that deal with the markets directly. And as the CEO already mentioned, we have 18 markets. From those 18 markets, 7 of them are industrial markets. We are not considering opening them because they are not essential services. And then we are left with 11 markets, of where we had almost 4 meetings with our Minister of Med to make sure that the markets will open. But we don't want to just open the markets and again, while we are selling, we tell people to stop because we want to do A, B, C, D. Obviously, as the CEO also mentioned that over the years, the funds was very problematic and maintenance was not taken on time. And we had then issues like toilets that don't have water, that's leaking, and so forth. And then we take that decision to say, all right, let's start this approach of cleaning also these markets. Now, yesterday, after we had countless meetings with our Minister of Med, also the Deputy Minister of Health and Social Services, we called all the vendors for that market. First of all, we trained them on COVID, all the social distance issues, washing of hands, and then we also issued them, registered them, and issued them with individual cards. Now, yesterday, all of them came and we removed or moved all their stalls sideways, and then we cleaned the floor, the roof, and as I'm speaking also now, the colleagues are there to demarcate the areas so that we comply with all the health measures. Now, we also take a decision not to open the market at the hospital for obvious reasons that it's at the hospital where patients come and normally it targets patients. But for the 7 traders that we have there, we will allocate them in one of other market, most probably at the one at Commercial. Now, all the markets that we have, we start now with Oshetu, that we hope to open tomorrow. So, but we don't want to rush it also, as we agreed, because we are also awaiting the gazetted directive from the minister, which is still coming. Because at the moment, even if we implement the measures, we cannot regulate it until the directive from the minister is out. Now, hopefully then tomorrow we open.
So how do you ensure things such as social distancing and so on at the market once they open?
Yes. What we are doing now with social distancing is we are busy remarking the whole market, and then we also come up with a roster, especially the traders. They are split in 3 groups. We will start with one group. If we open on Wednesday, that group will sell the whole day so that there is enough distance between the trader and the customer. And then the second group will come in the next day, the third group will come in the third day, and the first group start again on the fourth day. So they will alternate. Now, we have markets like Okahanja Park that we want also to open the next day, say on Thursday, because we are also busy there to disinfect and also do those markings. So it's Okahanja Park, it's a Soweto Market, and a Ngenda Market at Macy Street. Those is the next step that we want to open. So now, if we go to Okahanja Park Market, that one is not so much, there's not a lot of traders. So the social distance there will work proper. So that's basically what we are doing. And our emergency services are ready. As I said, that the department consists of 5 divisions. One of the divisions is economic development, making sure that the markets are ready for trade. The second one is this emergency and disaster risk management. Yeah, they are, apart from doing the work to disinfect, they are also ready for any other emergencies, for fire or anybody else who's sick and so forth. Now, what we did with them, in order not to contaminate the whole emergency services staff, instead of them staying at the station where they are on standby, we send them home where they are on standby, so that if one of them are infected, then it will not spill over to the rest of them. Yeah.
And what about the element of street vendors? Where do they fit in all of this?
Yeah, the city is, the informal trading is regulated in Windhoek. We have a regulation that is based on our Act of 1992, Local Authorities Act. The only traders that can trade in Windhoek is those that are registered with us. As the CEO already mentioned, we have over 2,000 street vendors. We documented them, where we know exactly where they are on the corners. But unfortunately, they are not registered with us. But what we are saying is that in our market, currently we have a space for 350, which places that are not taken up. We will try first to accommodate 350 of them in those markets as we continue to open. But if you know that we have 2,000 street vendors, and if you look at the aim of COVID, is people must stay at home. If we don't want to spread this disease, and it's also the wish of the Ministry of Ministry of Health and Social Services, people must stay at home. And that's why we only want to sell also a limited stuff in those markets, the food stuff. Those people who prepare TVs and radios and watches and so on in our markets, they will not operate. Yes.
So only food traders that are selling food stuff?
Only those.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hambuda. I will now give over the opportunity to the media to ask some questions. Viewers at home and listeners, you are encouraged to call us at 061-400-397 should you have any questions to the panelists that we have here at the COVID-19 Communications Center around the measures taken by local authorities to avert the economic hardships they are going through and will continue to go through as we try to fight COVID-19 in the country. Media. Yes, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Good morning, my name is Jemima Beatrice from the Namibian Sun newspaper. This question goes to Mr. Kaimisi.
Just a bit louder, Mr. Maima.
Could you please tell us why is it that the city of Windhoek seems to have no long-term plan to provide water and sanitation to the informal settlements, and we are often found in crisis mode like we have been with the hepatitis outbreak as well. The other question is to Dr. Munyangwe. Yesterday I asked Dr. Shangula, he didn't answer my question about where the active 10, the 10 active coronavirus cases are being held. From some reliable sources, we have learned that some of these people are holed up in some apartment buildings, either rented by government. I don't know what that kind of, arrangement is. Can you please provide some clarity? Because my understanding is also that some of the tenants in these apartment buildings have not been informed about this potential health risk that have entered these buildings. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll get one more. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Stephen for Commerce and Industry Review Magazine. My question goes to the city of Windhoek. If you say we cannot have the guys who repair radios and TVs, and here you are giving out information to the public, how do you expect the public to get information from centers like this if their radios are broken and nobody is able to fix them? That's one. The next one is there are some markets that are springing up along the roads, and they operate from 6 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, but there are no toilet facilities. For example, one along Robert Mugabe. How is the city addressing that kind of situation in terms of hygiene? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just, with the indulgence of the panelists, maybe just get the whole questions from the media so that we can get one time to respond? Yes, ma'am. You would be the last one.
Julia Hayter from Eagle FM. My question is to Chief Abraham Kanime. Has there been an increase or decrease in crime since the lockdown? And we also wanted to find out if since there's an illegal sale of alcohol seemed to be a growing matter, since the conditional ban of alcohol during this period, do you have any numbers with regard to those arrested or fined for contravening the regulations in respect of alcohol? And also, what are some of the crimes mostly committed during this time? The last question is, what is the city police doing to make sure their officers do not abuse their authority and engage in activities that can be considered as police brutality? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was our last questions for now. Unfortunately, there are a bit too many just next round. Mr. Kaimi said to you, there are questions around the long-term plan of giving water and sanitation to the city's residents. Yeah, perhaps that one and some others.
If I may, Honorable Chairperson, before I answer and respond to that question, if I can just highlight the issue of the legal framework and also expected appreciation as residents for the existing legal framework. The initial regulations were issued aligned to the declaration of the lockdown. The same regulations were amended for the opening of markets. That is the overall legal framework. Within that framework, Regulation 12 was amended to allow opening of markets. Unfortunately, as much as we are prepared as a local authority, and that applies to also others, we need to take cognizance of also our own legal framework in the form of the directives. People are crying, yes, they are starving, they live from hand and mouth, and the markets are not opened where they are surviving from. We just have to request for that indulgence. We are working around the clock. I have mentioned the 3-tier government. All those tiers are working to ensure that that framework is in place. As soon, if it is done tomorrow or even today, surely the markets that are earmarked to be opened tomorrow will be opened. And please, I just wanted to impress on that so that we don't create unnecessary expectations while the legal framework is not in place.
And those who are trading in TVs and radio repair, the question was also around how do then people get information such as this you're announcing if they do not have their TV or radio fixed? Around now, the other traders, except for those only who are having foodstuffs.
Okay, for the other traders?
Yes.
For the other traders, surely we are all looking at the period of the lockdown, unfortunately. because they don't offer a critical service in line with the existing legal framework. And we are trying by all means to keep the public informed, even through radios and whatever that we can. And also that's why we are also here to disseminate this information as far as we can. To come back to the long-term planning of the city, the scenario of Windhoek, the national growth, population-wise, 2 to 3%. The urbanization in Windhoek is double, 6-7%. And the people moving from wherever they are moving to Windhoek is not controlled. What are we sitting with? The scenario of people that have settled themselves and expecting services from the municipality in this case, for which the infrastructure on the ground was not planned. It was not planned for the number of people that have settled themselves there. Completely out of hand. But surely, the good thing of the outbreak of hepatitis E and probably the unfortunate situation that we find ourselves, we have no other choice because that segment is the most vulnerable, irrespective how they have arrived. Let's forget how they came. Now they are in our jurisdiction and there is a public health issue. And that's why we directed most of our resources on the capital part 2-3 years back in capping and dealing with hepatitis E. Now, also with the assistance of government, we are doing that. And what it has actually contributed is actually in allowing council in our upgrading strategy. It's a public policy. In the informal settlement, the residents should have access, especially to water and public services, within 200 meters. Surely that has been achieved, but we can do better than that. And that's why we are fortunate to have received 50 million from government, and we have done a lot in formalizing the informal settlements gradually, and actually eventually having a plan to ensure that the so-called informal settlement must eventually be formalized. We have tried to arrest the situation. If you go out there, you will see we have put up a very, probably not a famous fence. Psychologically, that fence worked. If you go to the fence, probably the fence is stolen, but the barrier, people have not actually gone beyond that barrier. The plan was, arrest the situation, let's bring the formalization and all these interventions on the other side of the fence, and let's do in-suit development so that eventually we can remove the so-called informal settlement. It's doable, but it's a long-term plan. Surely we do have master plans for sanitation and water. Unfortunate situation is we are in a backlog situation. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Amputa, just a little bit around the question of markets along the road that are popping up.
Yes. The markets along the road are popping up also because the old concept of a market where people come together is normally identified by a trader, where you see there's a lot. But our current market, people goes where they see the fit, where they see there's movement. That's where they go. And when we develop the markets, we develop markets in certain places. But then people don't want to be at that places. They rather go to a place where they see, where they find customers. Let's take the scenario of at UNAM. There's no formal market there. But there are students that cannot afford maybe the food at the cafeteria, and then traders see that opportunity. But it started when they started building that extension 1 of academia, where they see that there is a lot of people who wants to eat a fat cake and just become a tangara and so on. So that's where the people goes to. So, but what we are saying, traders in Windhoek are regulated. And for traders to trade any place, they need to have our permits. Even if they are trading along the road, we term them as illegal traders. And going forward, we want to engage the traders so that we can agree on areas where we can settle them and formalize those areas. Yes, I know sometimes in Klein Windhoek, you find them there. You find them all over. But we need to come together. Remember that the residents in that areas also are not happy for the markets just to spring up like that. So that's why there is a need, and we recognize that. There is a need so that we come together as traders. Going forward, even before COVID is over, we are already working on ways post-COVID to see how can we go into discussion with the traders so that we can come up with formal markets, so that we don't have trading along the roads and so on.
Thank you. Chief Kanime, the 4 questions directed to you. Has crime increased or decreased during this time? The number of those arrested in contravention of the regulation on alcohol? What are some of the crimes, if there are any, that have been committed during this time? And issues of ensuring that there is no severe conflict between law enforcement agents and the public?
Thank you very much. On the first question, we have experienced a decrease in most type of crime. Take note that our approach as a city police, we have identified the crime of concern. And these are housebreaking, robbery, theft out of motor vehicle, rape, murder. And it have really totally decreased. And especially rape and murder, it's gone. And one can see that alcohol is a big problem. And if we can really put more measures on the sale and use of alcohol, we're able to see crime going on. Those related to COVID, we have 63 cases so far registered. But what we are saying is it's only when it reached a point of being registered and reported at the police station or action was taken. But as I said at the beginning, that our focus is more to positively influence the community. Therefore, the warning and education and it's many cases. The one related to alcohol, there are 23. And I have observed that we really have people that are more innovative. And if they can do this even on economic development, I think we'll be better off. So, you think a person is carrying a suitcase or a toolbox or a car, thinking that people are talking, but it's now a bar. People remove their alcohol from the bar to their houses, and you go there as you are visiting. The type of crime that have been experienced is theft under false pretense, where a person comes that I'm from the municipality, I want to check what, and various. That has been still observed. Theft out of motor vehicles, because most people now, even if you go and visit, he's trying to be inside, leaving the car outside, and this can even be more prevented if we stay at our houses. And the other one is business break-ins, because most of the business are closed. Then the thieves now are targeting those places. Come to the police brutality. As I already said, that we are trying to transform our officers to understand that winning over the mind of the people is quite important. As we are training the community, even a normal standard, to understand the importance of obeying the law, On the other hand, we are also train our officers on professionalism and encourage them to respect the community because they are from the community. But these officers just come from various upbringings, and therefore you have to deal with them. But I can tell you that, yes, the relationship between the police officer and the community, it's really still good, although you have some incidents. Now and then, we brief them accordingly so that we minimize and improve the relationship between the community and the police based on the 9 principles of policing that are more emphasizing on policing by consent and voluntary compliance with the law by the community.
Thank you very much, Chief Kanime. One last question from the gentleman over there who wanted to ask a question. We have really run out of time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mine, I think, was just to Mr. Kaimi said, just to clarify on the issue of water again, please. Who gets water and who doesn't get water? That issue was not really very clear because I think you kind of separated the situation there.
Thank you.
Another one, quick one. Maybe anyone can answer this one. Is the issue of if a foreigner finds himself in any of local authorities, what do they do in that situation? Is there a way they can be assisted with food or some sort of assistance while they are here in Namibia?
Noted. Thank you very much. We asked those 2 questions and then also please your concluding remarks. Maybe we can start with Mr. Ambuda if there's any responses.
Yes. Let's start with the last one. If a foreigner finds himself here, obviously he planned to come to Namibia. And if he did not plan to come to Namibia, maybe if he's a refugee, he ought to be at Osire. And if he's on the streets and he cannot find food, then obviously he will be part of the people that will be hosted at our places that we have at the Commercial soccer field and at the youth center. So if he's roaming on the street and he don't have food, he don't have anywhere to go, we are hosting them. Yeah, we are providing shelter at the Commercial soccer field. We providing shelter for the street kids. At the commando also there are some that we give food, some of them we move to the youth center. Yeah, so
Any concluding remarks? Concluding remarks.
Yes, my concluding remarks really is that we have law that is what we call now the regulations that is passed by His Excellency the Head of State, and we are waiting also now for the directive from our minister. What I want to tell the traders really is let's work together. And what we want the standards that we are adopting now with COVID-19 should not only be temporary, but those are standards that we need to adopt going forward. Because we don't know when the next virus will hit us. We need to be proactive rather than reactive.
Thank you, Mr. Ambuda. Mr. Kaimise.
Honorable Chair, maybe just to clarify on free water. Surely free water is targeting the most vulnerable group or segment of our society. In Windhoek, and probably also at the other local authorities, we have targeted the informal settlements. So for now, free water residents, it is for those that reside in the informal settlement. How do they access free water? Standpipes and water tanks, until it's communicated otherwise. So a resident in Windhoek or anywhere else who have got access to water and electricity, those services need to be paid for under normal conditions. So I just need to verify that, to clarify that. And also, should anyone trade at any market where there are prepaid services, don't expect the municipality to give you free water because there is a meter. Just get your tokens, whatever you have to get. We need to clarify that. Free water is to sustain the lives of our residents during this period, provided they are at home and the vulnerable groups. In my conclusion, Honorable Chair, the municipalities needs to evolve. We need to change as things are changing. There is also an opportunity for change. Our service delivery will never be the same post-COVID-19. There is also one issue that I have to highlight. The unfortunate behavior of the residents somehow contribute how things are also evolving. An example, taxi driver in Windhoek, if you look at the behavior of the passengers, also somehow contribute to those taxi drivers contravening the law by standing at a place where the taxi is not supposed to even to stand. The roaming and the moving markets is a reality. People are chasing the market. Who's the market? It's the people in Windhoek.
Thank
It's a
you.
serious challenge where I'm sitting as a CEO. I think those are the issues that keep us awake. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Kaimise. Mr. Kanime.
Thank you very much. I just want to highlight the readiness of the city in response to this situation. My CEO already said that we have created an emergency response team where I am the incident commander, deputized by Mr. Hambunda. And under us, we have 5 committees, one for planning and coordination. I think the title itself is self-explanatory. Finance and logistics. Internal response, that is to ensure that service delivery, even at this point in time, still going ahead. The enforcement, infection and prevention control, as well as the crisis communication. But again, in this situation, we are not operating in isolation. I happen also to be part of the higher level of law enforcement and security cluster. And I'm so happy the assistance that we are receiving from other clusters, security clusters. You talk about immigration and control. You talk about the correctional service, who are giving us the technical people to assist us in various, the Namibian Defense Force, who are assisting us with the tanker, the truck to take the water. And let me not even talk about the Namibian police, because in a situation of disaster, when it's declared, the city police will be fully integrated into the Namibian police. And our relationship, our approach in all those situations, their support is quite appreciated by the city.
Thank you very much.
The community should be ensured that the city is really trying as hard as possible to deliver the service under this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Kanime. Thank you for joining us this morning as we discussed around the economic hardship faced by local authorities, in particular the Windhoek municipality in this time of COVID-19. Please join us again at 4 o'clock as we give you a further health update. The DM is right here. Unfortunately, we are out of time. She'll just answer to you. I'm sure that will be communicated. We have a health section at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We will get deeper into the health issues. I'll just also like to remind that, remember, this is just a health update that we have in the morning. The health professionals, and that's why we try to have this morning session to address other sectoral issues facing the Namibian nation during COVID-19. So thank you very much for joining us every morning and afternoon as we delve into these issues. Continue joining us and continue engaging us. Thank you.